In today's episode, we'll answer a question about basement windows.
And later, I'm flipping the script and putting Stacy in the hot seat to discuss the brand new book she co-authored with Scott Sidler, The Case for Historic Windows. But first, I'm Daniel Cantor.
And I'm Stacy Grinsfelder.
And you're listening to True Tales from Old Houses.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Stacy. That sounded weird.
Didn't that sound weird? But you're in charge today because you're flipping the script, right?
Yeah, I'm in charge.
That was really strange.
This is what it looks like. Chaotic and just a little odd.
Well, before we launch into today's episode, I do want to say a special thank you to our Season 12 sponsors, the Window Course from Scott Sidler of the Craftsman blog, Sutherland Wells, Repaint Studios, and Old House Hub from My Old House Fix.
Thank you so much, you guys.
You can tell I have control issues because I've already taken the show back.
It's necessary. Somebody needs to do like the housekeeping, administrative, on top of business adult part, because it won't be me.
I gave you the top 45 seconds. That's all you can have.
I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. So what do you have for us today in terms of information, need to know, facts for our listeners? I'm trying so hard not to say announcements, but I can't remember what we decided to call it.
I don't think we have a new name for it, but I think I should start out with an apology. I don't know what you're going to hear on this episode. You might hear a woodpecker. I guess I want to apologize for the potential woodpecker noise that you might be hearing in the background. I've pulled these windows from my studio, so all I have in their place is a storm window. And in the case of the smaller window, I have plastic. And I did not realize how I'm basically living in a tent right now in this room. So I'm hearing all sorts of woodpeckers. I'm hearing everybody's leaf blower. That's pretty common. Lawnmower, you name it. So if you hear that, sorry.
Now, is the woodpecker on the house or on a tree?
Oh, thankfully, no, it's not on the house. I finally got rid of all the woodpeckers that were bugging my house, but it's on a tree. And my house is surrounded by trees. And I couldn't even tell you where it is, but it's thankfully not damaging my house.
Okay, good. Thank you, Woodpecker Society.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that there are still just a couple spots left for the Wood Window Workshop at Silver Lake. The weekend of July 18th through the 20th, the 11th through 13th did sell out. Silver Lake Institute here in New York, it's within a half day's drive, plus or minus, from Hudson Valley, Toronto, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and the like. I just always like to say that in case people think, oh, I'm going to have to, fly in. But if you do want to fly to attend this workshop, we do have the Buffalo Airport and the Rochester Airport.
I just wanted to ask, because there is a real possibility that this will be fully sold out by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah.
Is there a waitlist opportunity available to
There
people?
is.
Okay.
Yeah. We currently have a waitlist for the 11th through 13th. We'll open up a waitlist for the 18th through 20th if that happens. And you can find all that information at blakehillhouse.com. You'll see it right there on the homepage, a link to sign up for the workshop. And if it's full, you'll find links to the waitlist.
Sweet. Super fun.
Easy peasy.
What else?
Well, do you have any follow-up? I mean, I have a couple more things, but I want to see what you've got first.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard tell that the Napasan powder is sold out.
It is.
I'm going to pretend that's me, but I don't think that's me.
So Napasan, let me explain what this Napasan
Yes,
stuff
please
is,
do.
because you and I did I think it was on the mini-sode, and you were talking about this miracle cleaner and disinfectant that you had been using on mostly soft goods, right? So towels and whites and I don't know, shower curtains, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it's called Napasan. Sorry, where's it from?
I believe it's Italian.
Okay. All right.
And it's a laundry disinfectant additive.
Yeah. So you were very convincing, highly convincing. I went to find it. Can't find it anywhere in the powdered form that you were using. I found it in liquid form. So my question for you was, do you think that's just as good, or should we be sticking with just the powdered form?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
So I was able to find the liquid form and also what looked to me like OxyClean, which I think is safe for colors.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm not actually sure if the one I've been using would also like bleach things. I did do it with a pair of jeans and they look great.
Oh,
I don't think it really bleaches, but
Okay.
I saw something on BuzzFeed a year ago and ordered a product, and that's as much as I know about that
That's
product.
as much as you know. But you like
But
it.
I do really like it. Yeah. So anyway, it might be sold out. There is this liquid version. If you buy it, please report back because I don't know.
I'm going to link it in the show notes anyway. And if anybody wants to do a little experiment at home, and report back, let us know what you think.
Always room on this podcast for a revolutionary new laundry product. That's what we're about. Oh, I wanted to just mention really fast. So it's been a little while since we talked about the Kingston City Land Bank. I have not been a member of the board for over a year now, but the organization continues to work. And a lot of the things that they're doing now are things that I kind of was involved with starting back when I was a part of the organization. So I had a really fun day where I got to go look at the final 6 homes that the land bank has just wrapped up renovating. So there's 2 that are still kind of under construction, but close, and then 4 that are done. And closings are starting with the families that are buying them as affordable first-time home ownership. I don't know the families. I've heard they're great. And the houses look beautiful. So it was really fun. When I was part of the board, I was also very involved with the construction, and I'd go check in every week or what. I was on site a lot. With these, I basically passed off my final set of design specs, never actually saw a full review of the final plan. So I don't know. And then I never went back. So to just kind of go from my last memory of that house from pre-demo to walking into this finished house and it looking really good. And also being not remembering the house perfectly well enough to even really know what had been changed. And that's when a house has been well renovated is you can't tell it's been super messed with and but they're very different than, they were. So anyway, very proud of the organization, the houses, and just sort of the broader thing of the land bank has now renovated every single home that was made available to them. And
that's so great.
Was, a 6-year project. Enough about that.
No, thank you. I think that's wonderful to get an update. We haven't heard about it in quite some time. Thank you for updating us.
You're welcome.
All right. We do need to take a quick break, but we've got a listener question when we come back.
That's the Woody Woodpecker song. He's a pecking it all day long.
True Tales from Old Houses is supported by The Window Course. The Window Course, created by our friend Scott Sidler of the Craftsman blog, is a step-by-step do-it-yourself program that will teach you everything you need to know to successfully restore the wood windows at your house. It is self-paced, so you can go as fast or as slow as you need, and there are several price points to fit your needs and budget.
Spring is here and summer is right around the corner. Now is the perfect time to restore windows. And the Window Course has all of the information you need all in one place.
Scott is offering his students a special deal. So if you sign up for the Lifetime Access Package or the Training Package, you'll also get a free infrared paint remover.
Even better, the Window Course is offered with a money-back guarantee, and Scott is giving True Tales from Old Houses listeners a special discount. For 10% off, visit thewindowcourse.com and use the coupon code TRUETALES.
True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Sutherland Wells. All of Sutherland Wells products are handcrafted in Providence, Rhode Island with the highest quality sustainably grown tung oil. Tung oil, which is native to China, has been used for centuries as a durable finish for wood, metal, and stone.
Polyurethane, that's just plastic. And unlike polyurethane, tung oil finish penetrates the surface of the wood so it flexes and it contracts as the conditions change. And that makes it the perfect pre-finish or protectant for everything from fine furniture to window sash and sills.
Stacy and I have both used Sutherland Wells products throughout our houses, but whatever you are working on, Sutherland Wells has an entire product line available for siding, hardwood floors, furniture restoration, cutting boards, really, you name it.
To learn more about the complete product line, visit Sutherland Wells, that's WELLES, sutherlandwells.com. And to save 10% on your first order, use our coupon code TRUETALES. We're back.
We're back.
Today's question It's a window question, Daniel.
Uh-oh. Well, and on topic. Okay.
As the producer, I did that on purpose. I saved the window question for the window episode.
I feel like window questions on this podcast really only have one answer. So I'm very curious where we're going here.
Let me tell you the question first, and you might be surprised.
Okay.
Today's question comes from Erin, and she asks, should I keep my original basement windows? Part of them are definitely rotten, and I'm a little worried about security.
Are we about to get in a fight?
Are we? I don't know.
Definitely making you go first on this one.
Why would you make me go first?
Because it's your area. You did this to yourself.
I will go first, but what I say may surprise you. The first thing I'm going to say that will not surprise you whatsoever, or surprise Erin probably, is that I am sure that window can be salvaged, right? Are you expecting to hear anything different from me?
No, that on brand.
Right. Because those kinds of windows, especially the basement windows, they're usually 3 lights all the way across. They're easy to take out. You can replace the glass if it's broken. You could take the bottom rail off or the stiles, anything that's rotten, and that can be rebuilt and put back together. Worst case, you could use epoxy, and a whole lot of it, even though that kind of goes against traditional, even though that goes against maybe the purest point of view for how to repair these windows. But again, they're basement windows. They're probably closed 98% of the time, if not 100% of the time, is my guess. So epoxy would be, to me, an appropriate fix for rotted wood. Now, that said, you've got a security issue you're a little bit worried about, Erin. And, are they important maybe historically to your house? There are pros and cons here, I guess. I always think that what you have is the best thing to keep because then it costs you almost nothing, right? You just have to repair it, but you don't have to buy a new window and you don't have to adjust the jamb. And you have the window. And sometimes, as far as, basement windows, you might even have landscaping that covers them up. So nobody can really see if they're in great condition or if they're in horrible condition. That also takes care of that historic aspect, right? If they're so beautiful, then why don't you cut all your landscaping down so we can see them?
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
Cut down all your landscaping.
Because windows are more important. Yes. So I guess there's a little wiggle room in the answer to this question, and that you have some flexibility to decide what's important to you and what you need in your area. Those can be modified to glass blocks if you still need some light. You could add bars, which looks pretty city-fied, but you could do some security measures on the outside, on the exterior, to keep that people from breaking your windows and breaking in. Yes, I do err on the side of keeping them and fixing them because, like I said, you already have them. But I do see and understand where some flexibility for a replacement might be required or desired, I guess is a better word to say it. So you go. Are you surprised at what I said?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I guess
Are we fighting?
I don't think so. Well,
okay.
Maybe about the glass block, to be honest. But
okay. Go ahead.
I would just, I guess, add to that number one. So let's just assume the rest of your house also has original windows. Those basement windows are very unlikely to be a high priority. So if they are compromised, drafty, whatever, honestly, even if you intend to restore them later, it might not be a terrible idea to just get something that you can pop in and solve the problem for now. There are options there, like very affordable options. I hate to be making this recommendation, but you can buy a vinyl hopper window from Home Depot in many, many sizes for $100 to $200.
I'm picturing myself bleeping out all of those words.
I know.
So you're going to say you can get a bleep window, bleep,
bleep, bleep, bleep, bleep.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just need something to see us through. And, at the end of the day, if that ends up being what is there, it's not the worst thing. And I'd so much rather have somebody compromise their cellar windows that you don't see and actually do need to be more watertight and possibly more secure and whatever than the big, beautiful windows on the front of their house, So there's that. And then the other thing that I've done that I think is super effective is spray paint it. just spray paint the outside black and it looks 1,000 times better and just kind of disappears. And
Are you talking about everything? Like the glass,
no,
the wood,
not the glass.
Okay.
Just so like I had to do this at the duplex. Both of those basement windows were gone. So I found one in pieces. It was the 3 light that you're describing, but I had to put something in. And so I got simple flip down. They are vinyl. And then after they were installed or before, can't remember, I just taped off the glass and just sprayed them with a black spray paint.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Bonds to plastic. And they have held up perfectly. It's been years and they just look so much better than a white vinyl window.
Yeah.
If that is something you need to do. Obviously, also in the world of new windows, there are better options than just an all vinyl white window, but like that's a cost thing that you have to.
Okay, so let me just say one more thing. We aren't going to fight. I agree. We're not going to fight. But I will say, I mean, security is one thing, but if you're just worried because you don't like the way they look and you're planning to get them restored at some point or get to them, there's probably no big hurry. I've had this conversation with people before. It's the window might look really bad, but you're probably not going to walk out tomorrow and find it in a pile of dust.
Sure.
So something to think about before you rush to replace it. But by the same token, I stand by what I said, that there is a little wiggle room for that possibility.
Yeah.
All right. I think we talked about it.
I think we did it.
We did it. And we're still friends, right?
I love you so much.
I love you so much too.
Okay. Do we need another break?
We do. But I first want to say thank you to Erin for that question. It's good to challenge us every now and then. And if anyone else has a question for us to answer in an upcoming episode, please do shoot us a message through the contact form or leave us a voicemail. And Daniel, that's your cue.
Oh, you go to truetalesfromoldhouses.com. In the bottom right corner, there is a microphone icon. You click it. You follow some prompts. You leave us a voicemail. We hear it. We rejoice.
All right, let's take another quick break. You ready?
See you on the other side.
True Tales from Old Houses is supported by Repaint Studios. Daniel, in the past, how did you store your paint tray when you were mid-project?
I'll be honest, I would store cheap plastic paint liners in the trash.
Well, similar issue here, except I used a garbage bag and that was a sticky mess. But now I use the repaint tray.
I have also made the conversion. Let's spread the word.
Billy, the inventor, knew that this was a problem for so many, so she created the solution, and now her woman-owned business is disrupting the paint industry. The repaint tray solves that mid-project paint storage problem. It has a reusable silicone liner, an airtight lid, and it keeps your paint fresh for weeks.
Weeks, and more weeks.
It's like Tupperware, but for your paint tray.
Absolutely. The tray itself, I would like to note, is a very heavy-duty metal, so it doesn't slide around or wobble when you're using it. Plus, when you're done painting, you just let the paint dry in the silicone liner, and then you can peel it right out like the next day, and man, does it feel good.
The tray, silicone liner, and lid are built to last, which is better for you and the planet. It's the last paint tray you'll ever need, so save those garbage bags for the trash can.
Snag one for yourself at repaintstudios.com. And for 10% off your order, use the coupon code TrueTales10.
True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Old House Hub, brought to you by My Old House Fix. Next question, Daniel. Have you ever spent hours scrolling Facebook groups, Reddit threads, obscure websites, random YouTube videos, trying to find answers about your old house problem?
I think you know the answer, but in case you're not sure, I absolutely have. Not to mention those deep dives where you come out 3 hours later, you know everything about a certain topic that is totally unrelated to your project and haven't meaningfully made any progress. Does that sound like a thing?
That sounds like a thing. And that's where we are excited to tell everyone about the Old House Hub from My Old House Fix.
The Old House Hub is like your headquarters for all things Old House. It's an exclusive online community where you can gather resources, browse archives by topic, and connect with fellow enthusiasts and get expert advice too. It's a place where you can share your passions without getting lost in endless social media feeds.
There's no creepy AI algorithm suggesting totally unrelated content. It's just good, meaningful conversations with people who get it. So no more scrolling, no more headaches, just connection and answers.
It's like that good old school internet, but for Old House lovers. And the best part is that right now, True Tales from Old Houses listeners can get a 1-year membership to the Old House Hub for free with the coupon code TrueTales.
But that great deal is only available during this season of the podcast. So when season 12 ends, the deal ends.
Visit oldhousehub.com to join the Old House Hub community for free and finally have a go-to place for your Old House questions, projects, and inspiration. Stacy, it's time to talk about your new book. So may I call you a world-renowned window restoration expert? Is that a title you'll accept?
No, you may not.
But I read it.
You did. A little backstory on that. It's actually kind of funny. The Perry Herald, which is a local newspaper of Silver Lake Institute, actually, of Silver Lake, described me as a world-renowned window restoration expert in one of their first articles they did about the work that we do restoring windows at Silver Lake. And I've been getting a kick out of it for sure. So no, I mean, I chafe at the word expert. So imagine how I must feel about world-renowned window restoration expert.
I think it's more true than you're giving it credit for. Also, they called me Dan Camder. So I'm not a person and you're a world-renowned expert. So that's how we rank in Perry.
Well, I'll go ahead and let you do the introduction.
Okay, so today I'm very excited to do something that we've never done on this podcast. I have been interviewed, but Stacy, our creator, host, producer, world-renowned expert, has never been interviewed on the podcast. So I had the pleasure of sitting down with Stacy and her co-author, Scott Sidler, longtime friend of the pod, to discuss their new book, The Case for Historic Windows, The Truth About Energy Efficiency and Old Windows.
I am Scott Sidler. I'm the owner of Austin Historical down here in Orlando, Florida, and also write for the craftsmanblog.com and the Craftsman store. So focus most of my energies on window restoration, on either doing the brick and mortar work on these houses at Austin Historical or just teaching people how to take care of old houses at the Craftsman blog. So been doing that for 15 years and absolutely love old houses and all the people that go with them.
Weirdly, I have to introduce myself, even though you all know who I am. So I don't have an introduction quite that thorough, but I'm Stacy Grinsfelder, co-host of True Tales from Old Houses. And actually, Scott and I are here to talk about our book today, which we co-wrote together, The Case for Historic Windows, The Truth About Energy Efficiency and Old Windows. And Daniel, you are in charge today.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so weird to be here.
I'm sure. So, congratulations. You have produced your first book together. Scott, obviously, you guys have both been on the internet doing this kind of work for a long time, spreading the good word about windows. Can you talk about what prompted you to kind of take this to a very next level of actually producing your own book about it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to give Stacy all the credit on that because she was the one who reached out and was like, have you written a book about that? Like, have you done research on this? I think you should write a book on this. I think we should write a book on this. And I was like, I love that idea because I am a numbers guy. And when we have conversations a lot, Stacy and I will talk about that kind of stuff. And I'll be like, oh yeah, there's a great study over here that'll do this. It talked about this. And that conversation, that one single conversation just blossomed into, we should absolutely write a book together on this. And it's been a ton of fun. And really, I've written several books, but never had a co-author. And it was a different experience. And it was really cool how like our strengths, each other's unique strengths balanced it out on the book. So once she made the suggestion, I was like, I've been doing these like workshops where we're teaching people this information. And I was like, I've already got a good head start on it. Let's put it in a book format. So I thought, hey, great idea. And we're a quarter of the way there. Of course, that quarter turned into like a tenth of the way because there was so much. It was like, we'll do like 40 pages. And then another 120 pages later, we're like, I think this is it, but there's still more to say. So we kind of had to cut it off somewhere because we're like, there's just so much to talk about on this subject.
Yeah. It was like a big giant ball of tangled yarn for a long time. We're like, we have all of this information. Now, how do we get it into a nice round ball ready for knitting? And we had conversation after conversation, and it would go off on one tangent and then it would go off on another one. And at some point we're like, we really have to bring this all together. How are we going to do this? And that was part of the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really tough trying to organize. We would just kind of vomit out all the information and be like, okay, what do we do with that? Should we keep that or get rid of it? And like Stacy said, she was instrumental for me of like trying to organize all the thoughts around this and like, how do we structure this so people can actually read it and walk away with something?
Right. And Stacy, like, can you describe the process of trying to write a book from hundreds of miles away from each other? And I mean, Stacy can probably tell you I'm not the greatest group project participant. So to me, this sounds impossible, but clearly you've done it. So,
well, a lot of the credit in that regard goes to Scott then, because he's super organized and he has his work life. I mean, from my perspective, his work life balance pretty well balanced as much as that can happen. So, you know, when he's at work, he's working. When he's at home, he's at home. And for me, you know, mine's just a big nightmare, basically. I have zero balance.
Like,
when it comes to work life.
Sounds so nice.
Doesn't it?
It's very cool. Good for you.
I had to force myself a lot of days to just go to the library and write. And so I would go and I was like, okay, this is my work time. I'm at the library and I'm working. And so then we would work through just like a regular Google Doc and we'd show it to each other. And then he'd go to a conference and I'd go to a conference and then he'd come back and there'd be a vacation. And, you know, it was just this kind of ongoing thing of we would get together, at least in the beginning, regularly, monthly or twice a month or every other month or something. And then it kind of got to the point where I realized, you know, I can't write anymore unless we're together. We need to be in the same place, because I had questions that I needed to just be able to ask him right off the bat, you know, to ask you, Scott, right off the bat, and not have to, you know, we had to wait for each other to get to our computer time or whatever. So I actually went to Florida I think it was February or March or April. It was sometime where it was much more pleasant to be in Florida.
I was going to say it was the nice time to be in Florida. You're like, it was August. Wait, no, that wasn't. You weren't.
No,
you weren't.
I wasn't
silly.
drenched in sweat. Yeah, I wasn't drenched in sweat. It was a good one. So we got together and we kind of hammered out, I don't know, 2 days or something. Basically, I just sat in the office across from Scott and I'd wave my hand. Hey, Scott, I got a question. And, you know, kind of the same thing. And then we got a good chunk of it done then. And then it was just a lot of little back and forth.
Yeah.
So we finally did it.
Yeah. It was really funny working in a shared Google Doc, because it would be like, I could tell when Stacy was busy because all of a sudden my emails would get like all these notifications of she made a change, made a note, or edited this. And I was like, oh, she's in the library. She's plugging away. And then I'd go back and be like, okay, let's see all the edits. It was like, what did she change and what did she write? And it was really cool. So I'm assuming she was getting the same stuff from me. I was like, okay, I just had to get heads down on a project. And it can be tough sometimes to do that, just whether you're working with a co-author or not, just to be like, I just need time to focus, because nobody's complaining that you don't have the new book.
Right.
Everybody's complaining about the other commitments of, did you pick this kid up from their practice on time? Did you make sure that you answered this email? Did you respond to this? And it's hard to do one of these things that would be considered like important, but not urgent. Nobody was going to cry if we didn't come out with this book because they didn't know it was a thing. But we knew how important it was, and it was tough to just kind of focus on it.
Right.
Yeah. Now, either of you can take this question, but obviously you're both coming from a pretty large wealth of information just in your own two heads. Were there things about either just the process of doing the research for the book or things you actually learned through the research that were surprising to you or didn't fit the hypothesis?
I would say one of the best things about doing this book for me was the research. I had gone, let's say if I had dug 100 feet deep, because of this book, I was needed to dig like 10,000 feet deep. And some of the studies were annoyingly long and hard to read. If you've ever read scientific studies, I do not recommend it. It's awful. But it's, you know, it was like, I realized too that in this day and age, like the internet, there's so much information on the internet, and so much of it is somebody's interpretation of the actual data. And so I wanted to get back to the source of it and go through some of these studies, a 60-page study on insulated glass units from 1998. And I'm like, but this is information I needed rather than hearing somebody's interpretation or opinion on it. I wanted to actually see the data for myself. And that for me was so enlightening to go, I had this sense of, I know it's better to keep your original historic windows. And I know that there's some, like, they fail sometime quickly. But to look at the actual data and be like, oh, they're failing in this time in these ways because of these things, I just felt like it gives me more of an arsenal to defend my stance on stuff. And so that was really important to me. It was like when somebody says, why should you choose them? A lot of times before researching for this book, my answer was because you should and because they're better. And it was so qualitative and not quantitative. And now I can be like, let me tell you the facts. And I feel much more confident in my arguments after going deep like that. But it was not, you know, there were articles that would put you to sleep very quickly if you tried to read them late at night.
Yeah.
Or in the morning or in the afternoon.
Yeah, or really any time during the day. Yeah.
After lunch, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think that's such a common thing in our world of old home people generally, I think, are aware that there is a very good argument to be made for original windows, and there are objective facts to support that, but actually having that data in one place and right in front of you. I mean, this is what I told Stacy as soon as she told me about the book, is like, this is huge for us because, yeah, we all sort of regurgitate like half things about studies that we know exist, but short of the specific information, right?
You have to go deeper than the memes on social media is where we need to go.
Yeah. So if I could answer that question too, one of the things that I had read on Instagram or in social media or something was, this huge amount of waste that windows created in the landfill. And there was like an exact number on it. And that was kind of when I remember when we started writing this book, I was like, oh, I want to find that study and I want to know that number. And guess what? I never found that study and I never found that number, which tells me that I don't know where it came from. There are still people, I've mentioned that too, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw it. I know it. I saw it. I was like, we worked hard. Probably it took us about a year to write this book when it was all said and done. And during that entire year, I was searching and searching for a number. Now there's construction waste percentages and numbers, but it doesn't get down to that little granular level of how many windows are going into a landfill. So it was really important as we were writing to get real information with primary sources. And Scott did an incredible job doing that. I mean, sometimes he would throw stuff in the book and I would just be like, hey, Scott, where'd this come from? Where'd this come from? And and he was so good to figure it out because I was like, I don't know where we're going to find this number. So yeah, anyway, that is one of the ways that we work together. But I think one of the most enlightening things for me in the book was about embodied carbon. Embodied carbon was this tree-hugging, amorphous concept that had no relevance to my life whatsoever, except that it sounded really good to say. So, well, maybe it just sounded good to me. But as I was looking at it, it really made me think hard about what it is. And I guess I can just do a little preliminary explanation.
Yeah, please share.
Yeah.
Certainly not for me, but
No,
others.
That's okay. That's okay. So, I mean, the easiest way to describe it is that nothing comes from nothing, right? So if we have to make a window, for instance, to make raw goods, you have to actually get whatever things make up vinyl and whatever things make up, mine, it's a metal, so aluminum, that kind of thing. You have to actually get those in raw form first. And that create a certain amount of energy is required to do that. And then once you have that raw material, then you have to get it to a factory. And once you get it to the factory, then it has to be further turned into frames for windows or handles or hinges or locks or whatever. It has to be created into that. And then it goes to get glass. And then it finally gets turned into a window. And then it has to be transported to wherever it's going. And then from there, it's transported again. Sometimes that's 3 or more times. All of that is energy that is used to produce this window. So if you have to produce that window every 10 to 20 years because it fails, you're essentially rubber stamping this requirement to use all of this energy every 10 to 20 years versus just doing a little maintenance on an original window. And so it just made me really think about everything from, the sweaters that I wear, the sneakers that I buy. Every time you buy something new, it contains all of the energy, embodied carbon, it took to produce that item. And that was just very eye-opening for me. That was kind of a long explanation, but
I like embodied carbon. It's cooler than carbon footprint, which feels synonymous, the same.
It is similar. Yeah, it is similar.
Embodied carbon is cooler.
And I think that, to your point on the embodied carbon, I think that that's a huge part of it that is left out of the formula on just about every other window. Because you'll be like, let's say you have an old single pane window from the 30s, and then you're like, we could buy this new window, and people look at it and go, that's more energy efficient. It's like, that's operationally more efficient on operational carbon, but the embodied carbon, a lot of people are thinking is like, well, it took energy to create that old window, but we're not, what we're proponents of is not that, it's like, it's not proponents that you should go out and buy a historic window from somebody who makes it. While I think that's a good idea, the idea is this one's already here. So we've already spent that time to build it. And the embodied carbon on these old windows was so much less. I mean, you look at it today, I think people are starting to see a little glimpse of it with the tariff conversations where they're like, well, that's a Ford, so it's made in America. It's like, well, this part was made in China, this part was made in Mexico, this part was made in Germany, and this part, and then they're imported here to Mexico, and then they move to Canada for the glass, and then they move here. It's like, this stuff is going all over the world before it ends up on your doorstep. And these old windows were built by, if you're talking like before the 1920s, usually by a mill shop in your town, and they were transported 5 miles to your house. And they were made in some cases on these older windows in the early 1800s without electricity. I was like, there's very little carbon footprint. And we should be comparing that the fact that to keep the old window is different than to build a new old window. There's like no embodied carbon that's going to be, no extra carbon or anything that's going to be used or energy to keep that window. The restoration process is so local. We're not shipping these overseas to get restored. It's somebody locally within usually 20 miles of the house who's doing the work. It's really a huge gain for the environment and for the homeowners.
Which I think like hits on such an important point too, that we don't talk about a ton when we're talking about costs and pricing, is like, there's also just sort of the ethics of how you're spending your money. And I think windows are such a great example of like, maybe it does cost the same to fully replace all of your windows or have them restored professionally, if that's sort of the choices you're making. A lot of people, I do understand, don't want to DIY this job. But I would so much rather spend that money with local tradespeople who are, you know, concerned with the longevity of these things and you're keeping that money in your local economy rather than mostly, I would assume, going toward production, which could be happening any number of places. So anyway, I think it's wonderful.
Totally agree. Yeah.
In your research and obviously a lot of thinking about these issues, did you develop any, I don't know, sense of nuance around, okay, in this situation, it does actually make sense to just go full replacement? Like, does that situation exist?
Well, that's a tricky question to answer because that is not at all the tactic we took in the book. So I don't know that we uncovered anything like that. You know, there's always, how do I approach this? You know, because we joke about how this is our favorite echo chamber, right? I mean, an original window, a historic window, old window is basically infinitely repairable. So if that is the argument, then it doesn't really hold any water because you can infinitely go around. Even the wood, you can just keep making wood repairs. We can do this forever and ever, you know, amen. So what do you think, Scott? What's your thought on this?
I mean, I think we, in the book, try to approach it from a few things of like, does it make sense energy efficiency wise to replace your historic windows? Okay, we debunk that myth in the book. Be like, no, it doesn't. And it's really fun how I love how we're able to put together all the numbers and go, oh, wow. I was like, I'm actually losing money by replacing it. Okay.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah. I was like, because we were like, we're pretty sure this is it. But to actually put like some numbers to it to be like, oh, that's more than I was worried. It's like, it's going to come out like break even or 5%. I'm like, oh, that's a big improvement. And so we went from an energy efficiency standpoint, does it make sense? No. We went from a financial standpoint. Does it make sense? No, doesn't make sense there either. The only place where I would say I disagree with this choice, but it's also a personal choice because like it's private property, you have freedoms. Like if you're like, I don't like these windows, I want a different window. Like some people have asked me about their windows. Like I have 1985 windows. They're not working well, but I want to restore them. And I'm like, that's not really my bag because those were kind of mass produced, not meant to be repaired. If you don't like the windows, emotionally, I guess you could make that argument to go, it would be better to replace it because I like the look of this other window over here versus my historic window. That would make sense. I would still disagree with you and try and fight you and probably keep the sash in my shop until you changed your mind or the next owner was like, I want the old windows back. And I'm like, I have them right here for you.
Yeah.
They've been sitting for 10 years waiting for a new owner. But like that would be the only place where I think it would quote unquote make sense to replace your windows is I simply don't like the existing windows.
Right.
But then I would just say you have bad taste, but that might be a bit too harsh.
And people justify whatever they want to justify.
We do. Human beings we can justify just about anything, right?
Yeah. And when we talked about this book and we're like, look, this is just the information, right? We can just lead the horse to water. We cannot make them drink.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole goal was giving people the information so that they empower them to make the right decision. But we don't have any control over their decision-making process other than to give them the information they need. Will they read it? Will they follow it? I don't know. I hope so.
And And I think it will also help other people, if their neighbors are like, hey, I noticed you didn't replace your windows. Why not? And if they've read the book, then they can say, oh, here's why not. It's just a little bit of language, some information that they can share with other people when they're asked.
Yeah, it's window restoration evangelism. Like we'll go out and stand on the street corner with the little sandwich boards and just handing out leaflets to try and get people to educate themselves on it.
We're zealots now. Yeah.
Yes.
Now.
More so, yeah. Before I was just a devotee. Now I'm a zealot. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, good. We'll proselytize later. Back to, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit.
No, go for it.
You guys chose to self-publish. Was there a consideration to approach publishers or editors, or was it kind of from jump, this is how we're doing it?
I would say for me, I've self-published before, and it's been, so we don't have any, at least I don't want to speak for you, but I don't have any illusions of grandeur that this is going to be like a New York Times bestseller. This is for a very niche market. The total addressable market of people who want to read The Case for Historic Windows is smaller than for a Stephen King novel. So our publishers are going to be like, we are going to get this and we're going to push hard on it to get the few people in the world who are looking at this information. So we thought, at least from my perspective, like we have a really tight niche that is like dying for this information. And we want to provide a solution for that small niche of window restorers, historic homeowners, architects, GCs who deal with these old buildings, and knowing that it's not a mass market appeal, but it really solves a problem in our industry that we felt like between the two of us with our strengths that we were equipped to try and answer those questions for them that they really needed. The road through a publisher can be long and arduous, and it may end up just getting shelved. Whereas we knew if we self-publish, we can get it out and we can get it to people probably faster and cheaper. Maybe we don't have the distribution, but I don't know that it's going to be on the bestseller table at Barnes & Noble. But we can easily get it in front of the people with our two audiences in front of the people who are actually interested in this.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw the 3 typos in the book, I was really wishing we had an editor and a publisher. But I think we made the right choice. Initially when we started, maybe I looked at a few like real small publishers of sort of niche items, but it did make more sense, just to get it out there, do our work and get it out there in the most efficient way possible.
I don't know that I ever told you about this, Stacy, but I did reach out. I had done some writing here or there for Old House Journal, and that was at the time Taunton Press. I'm not sure if it still is. And so I reached out to them. I was like, hey, we have a new book coming out. I was like, would love to chat with you more about it. And their response was the sweetest brush off, which was like, that's so exciting. Wishing you guys all the best of luck. And I was like, okay, we'll self-publish. We're good.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it was funny. But I've had a lot of people do, oh, who published you? And I was like, look, we're a niche of a niche topic. We are not New York Times bestsellers. We're doing it ourselves.
I also think self-publishing is just so different than it was even 5 years ago. Like, I feel like maybe 10 years ago, self-publishing typically did not include a physical book.
Oh, yeah. Like normally, a Kindle copy or something like that. Yeah.
Like it was pretty much ebooks. So yeah, like now you have all these options, and it does seem like you did the right approach. All right. So now you've written the book, you have it out there. Do you have like favorite sections or like specific information that you think is really impactful, or just read it, Daniel, and stop being so lazy?
I do. I have a favorite part. It's the silliest part. It's probably more like an 8th grade textbook, but it's one of my favorite parts in the book. And it's where you look at your utility bill as a pie, and it's actually a picture of a pie. And I was just thrilled with this. So anyway, heating and cooling costs, I separated the pie because heating and cooling costs really are only 52% of the pie. And everything else is 48%. And when I say everything else, I'm talking about lights, anything with a light, appliances, anything like that. But only 52% of the pie is heating and cooling. And of that 52%, only 25 to 30% relates to windows and doors. So only a percentage of that 52%. And think about doors, the things that we're opening and closing all day to let our dog in and out, or your kids in and out, or whatnot. Windows, how often are we really just throwing open the windows and closing them up and down, up and down? No, that's the doors. So, using that in real numbers, that's really only about 14% of the utility bill goes to windows and doors, not just windows. So if you have like a $300 utility bill, then really only $42 are attributed rather to that bill from windows and doors, the things that you open and close. I'm going to keep harping on that. But yeah.
I think that's such an important point because like everybody thinks, yeah, windows and doors. You're like, well, there's only one door. It's like, but I'm constantly opening and closing that door through the day. And I'm usually not. Yes, not every window is completely hermetically sealed, but the door is a big gaping hole that is in that house depending on if you're living at home or if you're out working. I was like all the time. So how big of a number that plays, we weren't able to figure that out, but it was like, it has to play a big part. And there's a great book from the 1950s called How to Lie with Statistics. And I feel like the replacement window companies have absolutely used it, and they're not lying. They're just it's going to save 25 to 30% on your heating and cooling costs. And everybody hears my utility bills. It's like, no, on your heating and cooling costs. And like she said, windows and doors. Like, so it's such a small piece of the pie, but it's so easy to replace them that everybody's like, that's what I have to do. And they just fall into it.
Well, and like, you would hope it goes without saying, but I don't think it actually does, that when say you're, Stacy, I think you said $42 or something.
Yeah, $42 of a $300 bill.
Right. So say it's that with your old windows. It is not the case that when you put new ones in, that number goes to zero.
Right.
So you may reduce it, but I think that people often just in their minds, that's what that turns into is I'm paying $42 that I don't need to be paying. And it's like, yeah, maybe you're paying $15 extra. It's a much smaller number.
Something that did not get in the book. I'm sorry. I was like, I got to tell you this. So I'm so excited. Something that I didn't actually put in the book, but I saved it, is that during the winter time, I got this report from my utility bill company. And it would say, how do you stack up against your neighbors, basically? And I was spending 15% more than my neighbors. So they were comparing it to houses of the size of Lake Hill House, which is 4,600 square feet. And so just for funsies, I went around my neighborhood. They all have, for the most part, replacement windows, right? Okay, so first of all, 15% didn't seem huge to me when I saw all of that. But also, I had 3 rooms in my house that didn't actually even have windows in them. They were either like covered with plastic, or they had, a triple track window in there, but they didn't have the regular window. So I was like, all right, I mean, I know if we're going to blame this on the windows, that's where it's going.
Right.
But I just thought that was amazing that, this big old house that I live in with some of the windows not even in place, there was only a 15% difference. And I have 0 installations.
Wow.
Anywhere. Yeah.
You sound so proud.
I am. I am so proud. I just consider this house like a giant laboratory.
Yeah. I think that's something Scott has sort of done in the course of his career too, is sort of say, yeah, this might be sort of the modern code for new construction, and therefore it's something I have to do, but we might rip out that fiberglass as soon as the inspection's over, kind of thing. I think I remember that.
That may have come out of my mouth at some point. Yes.
Sorry, I'm a sponge.
No.
I do feel like really quickly, then I'm going to turn this over to Scott too. But I just want to say, if we're not blaming it on if we're not blaming it on windows and doors, then I just wanted to give a couple of other spaces where we are losing heat. Like I said, I was bragging about my no insulation, but anywhere behind knee walls, attic hatches, attics in general, plumbing vents, your dryer. Think about that. I feel cold air coming around my dryer vent all the time. Interior soffits, recessed lighting, fireplace flues. It goes on and on. All the places where your warm air can leak out or cold air can come in.
You want to find a boogeyman for why are our energy bills so high? Everybody's got that focus on we've got to be more green, we've got to be more energy efficient, and we need to fix these houses or tear it down and build a brand new house that's super energy efficient. You get it? That's our embodied carbon argument there on the whole house side of things. But it's easy to pick out windows as a boogeyman because you get close to the window and you're like, oh, it feels cold in the winter. You're like, well, because it's just a thin piece of glass. It was designed to let in light and air, and it wasn't designed to be as energy efficient as a wall, a 1-inch thick plaster wall with clapboard and sheathing and stuff underneath it. That's not its design purpose. If we wanted total efficiency, we'd just delete all the windows and we'd live in a cave. But then you're like, how far do you go? Where you're like, I'm removing the whole purpose for the window, which is air and light and visibility. It was like, now I've put on a a tint that's so dark that I can't see anything. It's like, okay, I mean, it cuts the energy cost, but it like also cuts the lifestyle enjoyment of living in that house. And so I think for me, one of the favorite things that came out in there, and we didn't even, which Stacy and I talked about, like, should we go deeper with this, was the payback on replacement windows, that it was, you're getting a 10 to 20 year lifespan out of them and a 32-year payback period. And I was like, if it's taking you 32 years to pay back this product that's going to go in the trash in 10 to 20 years, it's like, what on earth are we talking about doing? And that doesn't even count like the embodied carbon, where we couldn't calculate the number of years it took. You're like, look, I'm saving on my energy bills from day one, in the first month with new windows. Yep. But we didn't even calculate how long it actually takes. Cause you're like, well, we did spend 3,000, I'm just making up numbers, 3,000 kilowatt hours per window to manufacture it, transport it, mine it, and put it in your house. So actually, you're not saving anything, though you are on your bill here. You're not saving anything for the first 20 years. And we just couldn't calculate that number precisely on a window basis. And I think that was, for me, one of the regrets is like, I really wanted to have that like all in number, be like, this is your number, but we just couldn't do it. And we ended up taking this really fun take on it at the end, where we didn't want to just give people like the bad news of like, well, you're stuck restoring and we don't really have much for you to do. We wanted to kind of give them some examples. And so we put, which was great that I'm in Florida and she's in New York, to be like, these are two different climates. How do you deal with different climates around the US? And what could you do that's cheaper than replacement and still gets you the same energy efficiency and upgrades? And I think I'm really proud of the solutions that we put together and how we kind of piece stuff in. Is like, well, what if you put cellular shades and you did this for used a film on the inside for a southern climate, and use these different types of things that you could easily do for anybody and be way less than a replacement window, just so that we didn't want people to walk away and be like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Thanks for nothing.
We tried to give them a bunch. Yeah. You just depressed me that I've replaced them and now I'm in trouble, or now I'm never going to meet the efficiency. We tried to give them ways to climb up to those current energy efficiency codes. And even with a lot of these, which I was really impressed with on our research, was to be like, we will beat the energy codes as they are with your historic window just by doing these simple little things, because the codes say this is what the window unit itself has to meet. What they're not taking into account is if you add a storm window or even just a standard screen or blinds or shades or curtains, the efficiency you get out of that, the building code doesn't calculate it because that's all window dressing. It doesn't count. But I was like, it really does count. There's a whole, I'll tell you what, I have working shutters on the front of my house because you guys know I have shutter problems. And so when the sun's pouring in, I can just close those shutters and tell you what, it's not hot in that room anymore because there's no sun coming in. But it doesn't count according to the building code, but it counts according to real life. So that was the fun part for me on this, to really give them some solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my experience of talking with homeowners about their windows and stuff, I mean, it seems like a lot of people can kind of get to the point of understanding the financial and environmental arguments against replacing windows. Maybe they are not totally buying them, but they can get there. I think what a lot of people can't get over is how much time and effort this will take if I do it myself, and how expensive and difficult it will be to find somebody to do this professionally. So for those kinds of people, what does kind of the book have to say to them? It sounds like you've provided solutions that are not the full Monty of taking your window out and fully stripping it down and all of this stuff. So what do you kind of want people to take away if they're not sure they have it in them?
Can I say something real quick
Please do.
to this, and then I'll let you take over on it, Stacy, because I know you have great points on this. But I tell people a lot, it's like, I'll ask them, how much does it cost to not restore your windows? And they kind of get thrown by that question. They're like, I don't understand. I was like, $0. Nobody is forcing, there's no historic district that's forcing you to restore your windows, nor are we saying you have to restore your windows. I encounter people who are like, my old windows are so drafty, and I go look at the window and I'm like, this thing has been caulked shut since the 70s. I guarantee you it's not drafty. It is hermetically sealed. There's no air coming around this. So even a brand new window would be more leaky than this window. And so they don't have to restore. What our book is advocating is to keep the windows, and you can piecemeal it and do whatever you need to bring up the efficiency to meet your needs. It's all climate based and, each house. But that feeling of like, you're telling me I have to restore, is like, you absolutely don't. You can simply just keep it in the condition it's in and do a little bit of maintenance if you want to.
Yeah. And to that point, I think we address this in the book too, is that not every single window needs a full restoration.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them just need a little tune up. Maybe you just need a new rope, or maybe you just need to fix a pane of glass or whatever. Not everything requires the full strip down to bare wood and starting over. And I think people get stuck in that a lot. They think, okay, I don't have great windows. That means I need to restore every single one. Here at my house, I didn't. I've done tune-ups on the first floor, restoration on the second floor, because that's where we need it. And we talk a lot about that in the book, the things you can do. My favorite one, honestly, is just curtains. Just get some curtains, some nice thick curtains.
My goodness, yes.
Close them around the edges in the winter, and then that'll keep that air leakage to a minimum. Close them all the way at night, keep yourself nice and cozy. And it's shocking how well that works.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you're saying this directly to me as
am I looking directly at you?
I mean, my front doors, you would cry. They are so not weather sealed in any way. And all it would take is a big velvet curtain across them in the winter. And I just year after year cannot manage to make myself do it. And
I told myself that same thing all winter long when I'd reach for the handle and feel the cool breeze hit my hand. So yeah, I think we're in the same boat where that goes.
Well, I personally am waiting for my double-signed copy from Scott and Stacy. Where can the average peon go and find your book?
I know I've kind of fallen down on the job, haven't I? All right. Well,
I'll wait.
Yeah, you'll wait for us to give you this answer, or you'll wait for your book. Both. Okay. Well, we have a website called thecaseforhistoricwindows.com, and we did that because there are footnotes in this book. There are tons of cited sources, which are links. And of course, you can't click on a link in a book. So if you go to thecaseforhistoricwindows.com, you'll find a link to buy the book. You'll find links for all of the cited sources that we used for this book. That link, I think, to purchase the book leads right to, at this point, Scott's thecraftsmanstore.com. So you can get it there. Soon you'll be able to get it on my website as well. But we can throw all of those links in the show notes too. And speaking of double-signed copies, I would love to give 2 away to listeners out there. So, Scott, you and I can get together and figure out how we're going to sign those from afar. But we'll put information about how to enter a giveaway for 2 of our books. Two separate giveaways, I guess, for this book. I'm really excited to get it in people's hands. It's been selling really well so far. It's been very exciting to watch that number go down, purchase copies versus the copies in, copies out. It's fun to watch that number.
And we've got it in, in paperback and ebook format too. And if you insist, if Amazon is your place and you need it to shop there, it's on Amazon as well. It was really exciting. I think in that first week when we launched it, we achieved that bestseller status in contracting.
Wow.
Yes.
So it was really cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Like,
our niche
people
of a niche.
were like, yeah, exactly. But it was like, that was a broad category. It was like contracting. I was like, there's a lot of books in contracting. So I was really excited that it shot up there in its first week and stayed there for a couple days. So that was great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amazon's super quick, but I do like to tell people, I used this example with you, Daniel, before, that like if you get it from Amazon, then Scott and I basically get to share a cup of coffee. We get to get 1 cup of coffee that we take sips from each. But if you purchase it directly from Scott's website, or eventually mine too, then, we might even get a sandwich out of the deal. So yeah.
Dream big.
Dream big. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, unless you're a great fiction writer, it's like, no, I don't know anybody that's gotten rich writing books, but I was like, it's a great way, I think, to, like, we had information, we saw a need. So grateful for Stacy for starting that conversation to go, we should do this. And I'm really excited about this, where my books in the past have answered the, like, how do you do all this stuff? But this one is really more focused on the why and the what, like, what is actually going on? Give me the math before it. And so it's less emotion and more science on here to go, here's kind of the facts for it. And so that's exciting for us.
Yeah. And likewise, I want to say thanks to Scott for doing all those numbers and the data and the graphs and all that sort of thing.
Very useful.
Yeah. Your little calculator. Yeah.
It's right next to my computer at all times, because it's like, there's so much, like, oh my goodness.
It was so fun doing this project with you, Scott. So I appreciate the time and care that you spent putting into it. And hopefully we'll get to do something again.
Absolutely.
Well, you've thanked each other, and I will now thank both of you. And congratulations on getting this out into the world. I know it was a tremendous effort, and a Grateful Nation thanks you. Anything else you want to leave us with?
You did a good job, Daniel.
Hey, thanks. I'll take it.
Thanks for taking over the role of producer/interviewer today.
Loved it. Not enough to do it again, but loved it.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, and thank you to Aaron for the basement window question, and to our guests, Stacy and Scott Sidler.
Many thanks to our sponsors, The Window Course, Sutherland Wells, Repaint Studios, and Old House Hub.
Don't forget to enter the giveaway for Stacy and Scott's book. You can do it at truetalesfromoldhouses.com/giveaway.
And to continue the conversation, follow True Tales from Old Houses on Facebook or Instagram, and individually at Daniel Cantor and at Blake Hill House.
Please send us messages and voicemails. We absolutely love both. And if you like today's episode, please hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. It's free, and it helps more Old House lovers find us.
There's a brand new mini-sode headed your way next week. So until next time,
See you then.